You know, there's this one university out there that's a massive bargain for some students, but for others, it's literally harder to get into than Harvard. We're talking about the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, one of those famous public Ivies, and it is full of contradictions. So today, we're going to do a deep dive and figure out what the hype is all about. Just look at this number for a second. 6.63%. No, that is not a typo. That is the actual acceptance rate for out-of-state students trying to get into UNC's most recent class. Believe me, this one number tells you almost everything you need to know about how tough it is to get into one of the best public universities in the country.
So yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? When you see a number that low, you have to ask, what on earth does it actually take to become a Tar Heel? And maybe more importantly, is it even the right school for you? Well, in this explainer, we're going to cover it all. We'll look at what makes UNC a public Ivy, we'll break down that insane admissions process, and we'll definitely talk about the money, both what it costs and what kind of aid you can get. We'll even give you a feel for the academics and what life is like on campus. By the end of this, you'll have a much clearer picture of whether Carolina should be on your list.
Okay, first things first, let's talk about reputation. I mean, what is UNC Chapel Hill? The name just sounds prestigious, right? And for good reason. It's part of that small, exclusive club of public Ivies, schools that give you an Ivy League-level education for a public school price. At least, that's the idea. As we're about to see, that price tag really depends on where you live. Let's just run through the basics real quick. UNC was chartered way back in 1789. That makes it the oldest public university in the entire United States. Pretty cool. Its motto is Light and Liberty. It's located in what many people call the perfect college town, Chapel Hill, North Carolina, on a beautiful 760-acre campus. And with an endowment of $5.7 billion, you know they have some serious resources. And of course, everyone knows them as the Tar Heels. All right, let's get to the part that probably keeps a lot of you up at night, getting in. Welcome to the admissions gauntlet, where that shocking number from the beginning comes roaring back to life. Man, this chart tells such a wild story. If you live in North Carolina, your chances are tough but doable, almost 38%. But now, look all the way to the right. If you live anywhere else, your chances drop off a cliff to just 6.63%. See, there's a state law that says at least 82% of every freshman class has to come from North Carolina, and that one rule creates an absolute battle royale for every single out-of-state spot. So, who are these students who actually get in? Well, as you'd expect, their stats are just incredible. The middle half of admitted students score between a 1400 and a 1530 on the SAT. On the ACT, that ranges a 28 to a 34. But this next stat, this is the one that gets me. 97% of students who enrolled had a 4.0 GPA in high school. The bar is just ridiculously high.
But, and this is so important, perfect scores are not enough. Take a look at this. While test scores are considered, they are not at the top of the list. What does UNC really care about? The rigor of your classes, your GPA, your essays, your extracurriculars, your character, and of course where you live. It's what they call a holistic review, which means they're trying to build a class full of interesting, dynamic people, not just a spreadsheet of high test scores. You know, trying to figure out a process like this and how to pay for it all can be completely overwhelming. If you want some personalized help trying to save $40,000 or more on college costs, check out the link in the description to learn about our College Savings Mentor Program.
Okay, so let's say you've made it through the admissions gauntlet. Congratulations! Now for the next big hurdle. Can you actually afford it? Let's break down the costs.
Just like with admissions, this slide shows two totally different worlds. If you're a North Carolina resident, the tuition is an absolute steal at just over $7,000. But for everybody else, that number explodes to over $43,000. It's the classic public Ivy problem, an amazing value for locals, but a private school price for everyone else.
And that's just tuition. Once you add in all the fees, plus housing and a meal plan, you get the full picture. An in-state student is looking at around $24,000 a year all in. But an out-of-state student, that total price tag jumps up to over $60,000. That is a huge investment, no question about it. But there is some really good news here, especially on the financial aid side of things. It's called the Carolina Covenant. It was launched way back in 2003, and it was a total game changer. It lets eligible students from low-income families graduate completely debt-free. They do it with a mix of grants, scholarships, and work study.
It was the first program like it at a public university, and it really shows UNC is serious about making college affordable for everyone.
So we've covered getting in and paying for it. Now let's get to the main event, the academics. I mean, what's it actually like to learn at UNC?
Academically, UNC is an absolute powerhouse. The student-to-faculty ratio is a pretty solid 15-to-1, and you've got over 70 majors to pick from. And if you look at the most popular ones, biology, business, psychology, journalism, and poli-sci, you get a really good sense of the school's vibe. It's got this great mix of strong liberal arts programs and really practical, pre-professional tracks. Of course, college is so much more than just what happens in the classroom. So, what is it really like to be a Tar Heel? Let's get into the campus life, the culture, and all those traditions.
So if we look at who makes up the student body, the campus is about 57% white. After that, Asian students are the next largest group at 12%, then Hispanic students at 9%, and Black students at 8%. You know, for any student, this is a really important thing to look at when you're thinking about the campus culture and where you'll find your own community.
Being a Tar Heel means you are surrounded by tradition. That famous Carolina blue and white is everywhere. The rivalries are legendary, especially the one with Duke, which is just 8 miles away. About 16% of students go Greek, and almost every single freshman, 99%, lives on campus, which creates this amazing sense of community right from the start. And it's all guided by something called the Carolina Way, this idea from the famous basketball coach Dean Smith about being excellent with entirety both in the classroom and on the court.
Now, it's also important to give you the full picture here. UNC has a long history of student activism, going all the way back to the civil rights movement and continuing today with protests over all sorts of issues. And in the last few years, there have been some very real concerns and even tragic events related to campus safety. These are just the realities of campus life that every family should be aware of when they're doing their research.
So we've talked about the incredible reputation, the high cost, the great academics, and the awesome campus life. But this all leads to the final question: is UNC actually worth it? To figure that out, let's look at the results. What happens to the students who go there?
The numbers here are just fantastic. Almost 97% of freshmen love it so much they come back for their second year. That is an elite retention rate. And nearly 92% of students graduate within 6 years. These numbers prove that the students who get into UNC don't just survive, they thrive and are really happy with their choice.
Okay, let's put it all together. The pros: you get that public Ivy prestige and amazing academics. For North Carolina residents, the value is just off the charts. The campus life is incredible, and the student outcomes are top-notch. The cons: it's a massive challenge for out-of-state applicants who also have to pay a very high price. It's a big school, which isn't for everyone, and like we said, there are some recent campus safety concerns to think about.
At the end of the day, UNC is an amazing opportunity. But whether it's the right opportunity for you really depends on your situation, your grades, your goals, your finances, and probably most important of all, your zip code. It's almost like it's two different universities, depending on whether you're applying from in-state or out-of-state. So the real question you have to ask yourself is this: is this public Ivy the right fit for your future? Figuring that out and figuring out how to pay for it is a huge deal. Before you go, check the description for a link to our College Savings Mentor program, where we help families save $40,000 or more on college costs. Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive on UNC Chapel Hill. If this was helpful, make sure you visit our channel for more explainers on other top universities. We'll catch you in the next one.